Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Sanjay Goel. Sanjay is an interesting person for sure. So he's a CEO and founder at NachoNacho. It's a B2B SaaS marketplace powered by Fintech. They're hiring, by the way, if you want to check him out. He's a startup investor, but most interestingly to me, he's an adventurer, I would describe him, and an extreme sports guy. So yeah, he flies helicopter, airplanes, a skydiver, mountaineer, rock climber, speaks 6 languages, travel 91 countries. So hell of a guy right there. Sanjay, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Thank you, Charles. Thanks for hosting this podcast. My professional journey started in engineering. So I studied computer science, did a master's in computer science. I learned to design microprocessors and memory chips, which is a hot area right now. But I pivoted to banking. So I was a banker for many years in New York and London on the sell side. So I was doing derivatives and structured products for large bulge bracket banks. And then I joined a hedge fund as a partner in London. And then I decided that I want to spend the rest of my working career building companies. So I had already built one company in Silicon Valley during Web 1.0 in Palo Alto. That didn't work out. We shut it down because everything blew up. Web 1.0 blew up. But I still had the itch. So I started my second company out of London and Berlin in year 2012. Moved back to San Francisco 2016. We got acquired. And then after a year, I started this company, NachoNacho. So NachoNacho is a marketplace for SaaS and AI, as well as services. So we are basically what Amazon.com is for consumer products, a two-sided marketplace. We're that for software. So it's a big vision. It's a 50-year vision. We're in a fifth year right now. We're profitable today. We have 900 top software products listed in the marketplace, and we have pre-negotiated discounts in every software product that is listed in the marketplace. We have direct deals with all the software vendors. So we have $5.2 million per year of savings available. And then for businesses on the buyer side, we offer all those discounts. We also issue virtual credit cards to help you manage your software payments. We have a services marketplace where you can hire service providers that are relevant for the software that you're buying. And we have an AI-powered recommendation engine to help you discover new software products. And next week, we're launching Buy Software Now, Pay Later to also help you save even more money by getting annual contracts, saving money by buying annual contracts, but still spreading out your payments monthly.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a top feature. So you're like an AppSumo, but on fintech steroids.
Yes, and also on the very top end of software rather than early stage startups. We only work with very, very well-established software companies, everything from HubSpot, Carta, Notion, Slack, AWS, Google Workspace, DocuSign, Dropbox, QuickBooks, all the major software products.
Right. So let's start with your background before we get to that one. So you lived the dot-com boom, right? You had ideas.com in 1999. Let's talk briefly about that one. What happened there?
Yeah, so I like doing things that are, very high impact, that can have a dramatic, impact on an industry. And during the late dot-com days, I was a banker. I was, living in New York, doing really, really well. And I decided that I want to be part of the quote unquote revolution, the web revolution. And so the idea that came to me was basically there's a very big gap between big companies that are really struggling with innovation, ideation and innovation, and day-to-day consumers who have lots and lots of ideas. The human brain is very creative, but most of those ideas are not really relevant for those individuals, but they can be really relevant for those big companies who have the human capital, the financial capital, the infrastructure to implement ideas. So the ideas.com was a marketplace which would bridge that gap between anybody, any public person who has an idea that can be very valuable for a big Fortune 500 company. So we were a marketplace for that. We were a C2B company, which is also rare in itself, because normally you talk about B2B or B2C, but we were actually a C2B, where the consumer is selling something to a business.
Interesting. I think it's the first time I hear C2B. I want to talk next about Oximity. because you were acquired by Scribd, right? And Scribd was probably my favorite company from 2016 to 2020 or 2022, right? Because I don't read books anymore. I just do deep researches via ChatGPT nowadays to learn about stuff I want to get deep into. And I think it's very efficient, right? Because most books are like marketing cards nowadays. They don't really seek to educate, or at least most of them. So yeah, tell me about that exit and tell me about Scribd itself. I think Scribd was game changing as a company.
It was and it's still game changing. So we were a startup based in Berlin, and our vision was to basically reinvent the news media. We were called Oximity, which was short for proximity without the PR. So that was a little bit of a pun. And because a lot of news is really driven by PR, right? And we wanted to bring what I call real reality to the surface. And our vision was to really replace mainstream media with a much better system for news. Of course, we haven't done that. We didn't do that, but we built a lot of very cool technology. And we had the content DNA, and Scribd is a content company. Ultimately, they have ebooks, audiobooks, a lot of articles, magazines, UGC content. So they acquired us for all those reasons. And then we worked there for a year to accelerate further growth. When we were acquired, I think they had about 400,000 subscribers. Now they have more than 2 million subscribers. So they're doing really, really well. And they're the
Right.
leader in their space.
And at what point of your career were you like financially independent? Was it right after your banking days? And
Yes,
have
after
you
my
reached like your financial goals up to this day?
Yeah, so I became financially independent, many, many years ago after I left my hedge fund in London. And so when I started from nothing as well. So I came to America from India with $400 and a one-way ticket. So I'm an immigrant, first generation immigrant. And, everything I built, again, I don't need a lot. So, financial independence can mean different things for different people. For me, it means basically being able to live a good life and have everything I want, but I don't need a jet or I don't need to buy an island.
Yeah, just a couple of planes and helicopters and travel around the world and then just kidding. No, it's very cool. Why do you think you swam while most people coming to America sink?
Well, I think I have a different view that immigrants usually are hungry. They come with a lot of fire in their belly. And I've been around immigrants, most of my life, my adult life, and I see them really thriving. And they have basically nothing to fall back upon, right? So it's all them. Everything you do is you. So that gives you a very strong incentive to be your very best and perform at your highest level at every point in time, and also keep learning, keep growing, right? It's all you basically. I don't have a trust fund, or I don't have like family I can fall back upon and take life easy. So you just get used to working really hard.
To me, what stands out about you is probably your risk capacity, right? So you're a banker, so you know about risk, but you have very high risk tolerance, it seems to me, starting all these startups, doing these extreme adventures, right? So, what is your view of risk and how do you manage it on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I tell my friends that I have a genetic deficiency. I don't have the fear gene. Um, so, for example, when I looked up, people say, "Oh, why did you start skydiving?" I just looked up in the sky and I saw some people parachuting down, and I immediately knew I wanted to do that. And I didn't start. Normally, you start with tandem jumps, right? You're tied to another person and you jump with them. I knew I was going to do it. So my first jump was a solo jump. I jumped with two jump masters, but I was not attached to anybody, right? So I mean, it's obviously I'm not reckless. I take calculated risks. When I fly helicopters, I'm extremely, conscientious about everything about it. You check the helicopter beforehand. You instruct your passengers to make sure they know what they're doing, and they know what you're doing, all of that. So, but yeah, just kind of being outside your comfort zone is really what I enjoy. So for me, being outside my comfort zone is my comfort zone.
Right. I'm pretty much the same, but don't you attribute that to an addictive personality? Because Me, I still do have fear, the fear gene, but I think I managed it and I have it in chokehold very much because I put myself through so many scary events. But I'm also addicted to that, like I love conquering shit and just being on the other side and be like, yo, fucking did it. So do you have that addictive part of your personality as well?
I should talk to a therapist, or maybe we do a therapy session right now to figure that out. But I
Yeah.
haven't really thought about it. But I do know that, I do like, it's about, overcoming challenges. So I remember when I climbed Mount McKinley in Alaska, we were on camp 3, which is the camp right before you attempt the summit. And it's a very small ledge where you have to pitch your tents. We were, I don't know, like 4 tents, or 12 people, 4 tents. And it was such a windy day that we couldn't pitch our tents because the tents would have blown off and we would have gone rolling down the mountain. So we had to actually go and sleep inside an ice cave, literally inside an ice cave. So we had ice below us, above us, on our sides, and we had to like crawl into our sleeping bags and sleep that night. I will never forget that night. I have a picture of us in that ice cave at 20,000 feet up in the air, up at the mountain. And it just expands your risk tolerance, your pain tolerance as well when you go through those experiences in your life. So I think it just broadens your horizons and your mind.
And did it bring something back in your businesses, you feel, or were they just like pleasure investments, all these adventures?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of things. There's so much carryover from my personal activities to business activities. So, for example, when had learning to fly airplanes, right? I had an amazing instructor, and he would say, okay, he would give me the controls, and he'd say, fly at 3,000 feet, and let's say 090, fly east at 090, and he would just not say anything. And then 5 minutes later, he would say, look at your altitude and look at your heading, and I'd be totally off. And he said something that I will never forget. He said that, it doesn't matter how off you were. What matters is, were you aware of that, and were you already correcting for it? So that's what he's looking for, that are you actually aware that you're off target, right? So it's a great lesson that applies, in life in many, many areas, right? To be aware of being off target, for example.
So how do you know if you're actually totally off? It seems like a rocket science question. Definitely has to do with intuition, IQ, EQ. But in business, how do you know that you're off and just not on
Measurement,
product market fit target?
a lot of measurement, right? So, as they say, right? So what gets measured gets managed. So a lot of data, a lot of measurement when it comes to business, for sure.
Right. And you probably had your brushes with that. Did that reshape your perception about life and how it is to be lived?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say that you just become more fearless. I want to live for a very, very long time. I'm very interested in longevity.
You
Very,
didn't use the right hobbies.
yeah. But at the same time, not to be afraid of death actually strengthens you a lot more, right? You can do things that if you're really afraid of death, it limits you, and not being afraid of it actually opens many, many new doors for you.
And I think business in comparison becomes easy, right? I mean, climbing mountains is really hard, especially when there's low oxygen up there. So your pain tolerance needs to be pretty high. And when you come back from such a big physical effort, yeah, the perception about what's hard and what's not did completely change. But business is also different, right? Because it's your net worth at the end of the day if you fail, and that's really important in society. So do you ever have like fear of failing as a banker? Like used to hang out with banking people, net worth is like 95% of their self-worth. So
Yeah,
what are your thoughts about that?
I think again very similar to adventurous life and work life is not to be afraid of failure, which applies a lot more in especially as a startup founder. Um, when it comes to mountaineering, it's well known that most people who get obsessed with summiting the mountain are the ones who die. So when I climb a mountain, I don't go with any major ambition that I have to get to the summit. right? And this is such a cliche, but it is so true that it's the journey. So, and it applies really to startups, because if you're not enjoying your day-to-day work in a startup, for me at least, I don't want to, put up advise other people, but for me, if I'm not enjoying the day-to-day journey in a startup, I don't want to do it. It's not about the exit. It's not about the acquisition or the IP or whatever. I have to enjoy the moment, right? Am I creating value for our customers? Is my team having a good time? Is my team learning? Am I creating value for all our stakeholders day to day, right? So that's what gives me fulfillment, as opposed to the final exit or whatever else might happen. So in a way, that the outcome doesn't even matter. It's the day to day joy that matters.
Right. And what caught my attention also is that you mentioned 50 years, right? There's various philosophies when it comes to having a vision, but usually, like, it's very hard to predict what's ahead of 10 years. What's your philosophy when it comes to space, time, and goals in business?
Yeah, so it's about adaptability, right? So we have a vision which we think is valid today and in the foreseeable future. But if the world changes dramatically in unforeseen ways, then of course we will continue to adapt, right?
Right. Of all the sports that you actually practice, like, which one's your favorite? And yeah, because each generate their own mix of biochemicals, right? A cocktail
Mhm.
of adrenaline, dopamine, endorphins. Some of them are more relaxing, like diving, for example. And windsurfing is incredibly complex, but you're literally flying on demand, on command, right? So, which one are your favorite?
Yeah, it's like asking who's your favorite child. I love all of them. I also do yoga twice a week, 2 hours each session, which is the exact opposite of skydiving, for example, which is zero adrenaline, calming down your nervous system 100%. By the time I finish my yoga session, I'm like a newborn child, right? Your nervous system is completely reset. And all of them bring different things to your life and your being, right? So I go sailing, for example. If I'm take like hire a 45-foot sailboat and I bring some friends out for the whole day, by the end of the day your mind is completely reset, but in a very different way.
Right. Since 2020, you started investing in startups, I believe, through Gyro, right? Like, how successful have you been at that? And do you enjoy it as much as building your own companies?
I My startup investing philosophy is that I make a decision in 5 minutes to invest or not invest, and I press a button, and that's it. Because I don't have the time to do due diligence or go deep into the vision and all of that stuff, which is what a professional investor would do. So I usually invest. I have been typically investing through syndicates where there's already so much information that is baked, like who's a lead investor, who else is investing, everything is baked. All I have to do is spend 5 minutes, press a button, done. Um, but you're right, your question is very valid. I really enjoy building companies. That's really my big passion. And I sometimes tell my friends who were founders and they switch to the dark side, is that it's such a waste of skill set. If you know how to build a company, you should be building companies and not investing in companies.
Right. Yeah, I think Levels Health will pan out, right? Like, it's a pretty good one. But yeah, your philosophy is like Mazasan philosophy, like famously likes to say 45 minutes and 1 billion. That little guy, that little samurai guy, very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, you seem pretty obsessed with your health as well. Like, what's a day in your life look like?
So yeah, I mean, every day something or the other. So I was rock climbing last night. Today, actually nothing. But then Saturday we're supposed to do a big bicycle ride up in New York, New Jersey, like a 40-50 mile bike ride. Yoga twice on Saturday and Sunday. Rock climbing 3 days a week. Um, Running once a week in Central Park in New York City. And then also I'm practicing now to incorporate more yoga in your day-to-day life. So there's one new thing I discovered is sitting on the ground to work, cross-legged, as opposed to sitting on a chair. And it's
Hmm.
absolutely amazing. And I found a desk, actually a desk that has three settings. You can do standing desk, chair sit, and floor sit, all in the same desk. So I'm very
Interesting.
excited. I'm supposed to get that in the next 2 weeks. And I think we don't sit on the floor enough. And as you know, in Asia, it's very, very common to sit on the floor. I lived in Japan, and when I moved to Japan, they gave me a room to live in. And the only furniture we had in the room was one very, very low-lying desk. So you sit on the ground, cross-legged, and that table is your workspace, your dining space, everything. And I
Very
think
interesting.
it really encourages posture, better posture, and hip mobility, joints mobility, a lot of different things. So that's my new thing.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. Definitely was a standing desk, and that's a standing desk by not using it enough. Have you been treadmill desking as well? That was my thing last year. I should restart doing that.
What is that?
Yeah, it's you instead of standing, you walk. While you
Oh,
work.
right. So you have a treadmill under your feet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
nice. Did that last? I worry about things where you get excited about it and then you do it for a while and then you stop doing it. That's what I worry about.
I stopped. Why did I stop? It's a good question. I shouldn't actually. I know why I started though. It's because I was training for 100K run, and there's a lot of walking in these 100K, right? Especially uphill. So I walked most of my days. What was a bit annoying? Yeah, I know why I stopped. It's people used to look at me crazy during these podcast calls. You can listen to my podcast calls from last year. You'll see me like going like this, and people are like, "What the fuck is he doing?"
Yeah, it's kind
Um,
of distracting. I can
yeah, it's a
relate
bit
to that.
distracting and the noise and all that. But I'm gonna restart doing it. I don't really mind what people think. I want to ask you also, last but not least, you climbed a couple of mountains, and yeah, anytime you want to climb Pico de Orizaba in Mexico, you let me know. Well, let's go do that one. It's pretty fun. When are you doing Everest?
Yeah, so I did Everest Base Camp last year in January in the dead of winter, completely off season, just to see how my body is today versus when I climbed McKinley and Aconcagua in Argentina and Huascaran in Peru. Just wanted to test my body. I did okay. Only 6 out of us 12 actually made it to the base camp. So I think I did fine. So that was like a little bit of a test. And now I'm just increasing my fitness level, my stamina level, all of that. So it's on the cards. I want to do it. I know it's a lot of people are very turned off by all the crowds and all the nonsense that happens on Everest. But I think still for me, it's still a goal. I also wanted to go to space, and that's another of my on my bucket list. So we'll see if and when that happens as well.
Yeah, yesterday on the pod, I had a guy that yeah, drops pyramids with humanity DNA and knowledge on the moon and in space, like maybe yeah, he told me that the cost drastically reduced itself. I also had the guy that was in space this year, Canadian guy. I think it's like 200K, and that's pretty much it, right? Like you just pay the price tag, you train a little bit, and that's it. But thanks for
Yeah.
being on, Sanjay. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is easy to find. Just search for me on LinkedIn, or our website is nachonacho.com. So I'm very easy to find.
So that was Sanjay